Welcome to Cozy Noah Vibes, where we listen, we relax, and we drift off to sleep. As always, I'm your host, Noah. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Vanessa will read to us as we're transported to the fairy tale world of Hansel and Gretel. But this time, their adventures will be happy. From the woodcutter's cottage to the gingerbread house and back again. Their tale is a good reminder to slow down and appreciate sharing the sweetest parts of life with our loved ones. Something I certainly hold dear, particularly at this time of year. Now, get settled in a comfortable position. Relax in a way you can breathe freely and fully. Allow your limbs to stretch and lengthen, feeling any tension in them just melting away. Once you are settled and ready, begin to imagine your body surrounded by a radiant light, warm and glowing. As you breathe in, draw that light into your body, feeling its glow within. The deeper you breathe, the more the light fills every single part of you. One breath at a time, you are enriched by this radiant glow. It feels like energy, like a natural source of healing, full of nourishing warmth. It clears you of all worries, comforts, and negativity. You can glow within, and everything in the outer world will notice it too. So embrace it, believe it, and smile with a greater sense of peace, warmth, and relaxation. It's time for our story. Imagine a cottage very deep in the woods. It's nestled in a hollow where the snow is falling heavily. This is where our story begins. Once upon a December, deep in the furthest reaches of the forest, a woodcutter and his family sat down by the fireplace to eat a vegetable soup for dinner. The children's mother made all their meals with love, but even her skill could not hide the fact that the soup was nothing but a thin concoction of potatoes and onions. It had been a lean year, and the family had to live very simply. Their little house was just one big room, and it was simply made. It had wooden shingles on the roof. There were small windows with shutters on each wall, and there was always smoke curling from the chimney as long as the weather was chilly. Although their home was humble, it was kept neat as a pin. Their mother always said that the advantage to living in a small house was that it was easy to keep clean, and so it was. On any given night, the woodcutter, his wife, and their two children, Gretel and Hansel, could be seen sharing their dinner around the table by the fire. Any visitor who might have happened by would have looked into the frosty window of their home and seen a happy family talking and laughing. Although they did not have much, they loved each other, and they all tried their best to be cheerful. On this particular night, Gretel and Hansel could see that their parents were trying to keep their spirits up. Although their father had worked hard splitting and selling wood all through the fall, business had been slow. As a result, he had gently told the children that there had not been much money for a holiday feast this year. He said that they would have to all make do with enjoying each other's company and exchanging handmade gifts. The children were sweetened, would never have complained. Still, the oldest child, Gretel, wished there was something she could do to cheer her parents up. When the dinner dishes had been cleaned and put away, The children snuggled into one of the two beds in the house. It was very soft and was covered with a fluffy feather bed. Every night, their mother would sit next to them and tell them a story as they went to sleep. It was Gretel's favorite time of day. On this December evening, their mother asked them, "Have you ever heard the story about the gingerbread witch?" Hansel's eyes grew wide. He shook his head earnestly. Gretel said that they had never heard this story and that their mother must tell it. Very well, their mama nodded sagely. Now listen closely, for this is a very important tale. Then she began. Long before I was born, my great-grandmother, whose name was Hilda, lost her way in the woods and had a very surprising adventure. She had wandered away from her parents while they were picking berries, and when she realized how far she had gone, it was already too late. She called out to them, but she received no answer. Now, Hilda was a child of the forest. She could find her way around. She knew what things were edible and which were not. She knew how to find a stream to drink from. The best she could do was try to guess where she was and walk in the direction of her home. So she picked her way through the brush, over streams and around rocks, trying to find a path. Alas, she seemed to only go deeper in the woods. Eventually, because it was getting dark, she curled up under a tree and went to sleep. Hansel interrupted. Wide-eyed, she slept in the forest. He asked. His mother nodded seriously. Then she continued. When she awoke in the morning, she thought she saw a house up ahead. She pushed her way through the trees, and what did she find? Their mother paused dramatically. They waited. It was a house, but it was made entirely of gingerbread. The children were open-mouthed, hanging on her every word. A lady came out of the house and asked Hilda if she needed help. Now, of course, Hilda was a sensible girl and didn't usually talk to strangers, but she was in a real predicament and hoped that this strange lady would be able to tell her the way home. She was in luck, because the lady in the gingerbread house called out to the forest, and a deer appeared. She told Hilda to follow the deer, and it would take her back to her parents. But first, she gave her some warm gingerbread to eat so that she would be strong for the journey. My great-grandmother said it was the most delicious gingerbread she had ever tasted. The deer did faithfully show her the way back to her cottage. When she told her parents where she had been, they thought she had imagined the story and that she had wandered home by sheer luck. Nonetheless, she always insisted that the gingerbread witch was real. With this, their mother nodded and winked to show the story was over. Hansel was asleep. Gretel snuggled down deeper into the pillow and closed her eyes, saying, "Good night, Mama." Her mother kissed her on the forehead and blew out the candle, disappearing into the shadows on the other side of the cottage. As the fire crackled lazily in the background, she imagined Hilda's wanderings and what the gingerbread house must have looked like. It wasn't long before the girl felt herself sliding blissfully into sleep. In the very early gray hours of dawn, Gretel awoke to a beautiful snowfall outside the window. Shaking her brother gently awake, she whispered, "Hansel, let's go out and build a snowman." She and her brother pulled their coats and boots on over their pajamas, fetched their hats and mittens, and quietly let themselves out of the house. The sky was filled with gently drifting flakes, each so large it was like a confection. Gretel put out her hand and watched the snowflakes land on it, melting when they touched her skin. All around them, the forest radiated a profound stillness, the kind that only comes with a blanket of fresh snow. Before they could start their snowman, the children knew they needed some things: stones for the eyes, sticks for the arms, and perhaps a pine cone for the nose. They trooped off into the woods and began roaming about. Each time one of them found a proper stick, the other child would suggest there might be a better one. In this way, they wandered quite far from their cottage as the sun began to rise. By the time Gretel realized they had lost their way, it was too late. Not only had the snow covered their path behind them, but it had transformed the appearance of the woods they usually knew well. Wearing its sparkling winter garb, the forest was suddenly a foreign place to them. It was icy, brilliant, and beautiful, and also without any familiar landmarks. Trying to be brave, Gretel took Hansel by his mittened hand. She attempted to choose the right direction, but without much success. As they walked, their boots crunched ever so softly into the unmarked expanse of the sugary snow, leaving tracks behind them that were quickly covered. She did not know how long they wandered uncertainly through this wintry wonderland, but she noticed that despite the chill, their hands and feet never grew to cold. Every so often, as they passed beneath a tree, a light breeze would cause a snow spray as fine as fairy dust to drift across their path, showering them with glitter. After a time, Gretel thought she spied a curl of smoke up ahead. Hoping she had finally found their house, she urged Hansel on eagerly, making her way in that direction. As they proceeded, a perky red cardinal appeared, always hopping a few trees ahead of them, sailing gracefully from branch to branch. Gretel felt as if the bird was anticipating her next move. It was unclear whether she was following the cardinal or if the bird was following them. Either way, it was comforting to have a friend along. A clearing appeared ahead, and Gretel's eyes grew wide. Standing in the middle of it was a cottage that seemed to be made entirely of gingerbread. Its walls were the color of cinnamon, and its charming peaked roofs were iced with snow as fluffy as frosting. At the edges of the roof, colorful candies and gumdrops hung like garlands. Gingerbread windows framed with sugar icing revealed a cozy golden glow from within. It was as if they had stepped directly into one of their mother's bedtime stories. Hand in hand, the two children moved slowly towards the cottage, almost in a trance. As they approached, they could smell the intoxicating aroma of warm gingerbread and spices. They reached the little porch, which was adorned with peppermint stick pillars. Gretel raised her hand to knock, and the door swung open on its own. Inside, they saw a cozy fire, a Christmas tree, and the glow of twinkling lights. And in the middle of the room stood a kindly-looking woman with rosy cheeks and a flower-dusted apron, just as if she had been baking. "Well, hello there, dears," she said with a kindly twinkle in her eye. You must be cold. Come in and warm up by the fire. Although Gretel felt a twinge of suspicion, the warmth and the smell of baking were too inviting to resist. She and Hansel entered the gingerbread house and were enveloped in a welcoming warmth. The woman busied herself preparing hot chocolate and offering them freshly baked gingerbread cookies. As they sat by the fire, sipping the rich, creamy cocoa, she listened kindly to their story of how they had wandered into the woods. They remind me of another lost girl I once met, she said with a smile. But don't worry, I will help you find your way home. After they had eaten their fill and felt cozy and safe, the kind woman showed them a hidden path through the woods. She gave each child a small bag of gingerbread cookies to take with them. These will keep you warm and strong on your journey, she said with a smile. And remember, if you ever get lost again, just follow the red cardinal. It will always lead you to safety. With that, she sent them on their way. As they followed the path she had shown them, they felt as if they were being watched over. True to her word, a red cardinal flitted from tree to tree ahead of them, guiding them along the way. The forest, though still deep with snow, seemed less foreboding and more like the familiar woods they knew so well. After a short time, they emerged from the trees and saw the familiar sight of their cozy cottage. Their mother and father were overjoyed to see them, having feared the worst. Gretel and Hansel eagerly shared the story of the gingerbread house and the kind woman who had helped them. Their parents listened in awe and wonder, hugging them tightly. That night, as they sat down to another humble meal, they felt richer than ever before. The gingerbread cookies were shared among them, bringing an unexpected sweetness to their simple dinner. And as they went to bed, their mother kissed them goodnight and whispered, "Remember, even in the darkest woods, there is always a light to guide you home." Thank you for joining us on Cozy Noah Vibes tonight. I hope you enjoyed our adventure with Hansel and Gretel and that it brought a little warmth and sweetness to your evening. Remember, no matter how lost you may feel, there is always a way back to the light. Wishing you sweet dreams and a restful night. Until next time, sleep well